Excited for today's convo. I'm already kind of like I try not to have a pre-convo because then I get some of the excitement out. I want to keep it as spontaneous as possible, but we already had a pretty good convo. We got Dynamo DeFi, aka Patrick Scott, today, and we're gonna be talking about a bunch of stuff. DeFi Llama for sure. Really want to talk about the DeFi content, DeFi crypto creator, and like what would it take to get the interest and kind of like how's this adoption thing going to happen? And I do think content creators, um, it's one of the most amazing thing that's happened in media. And there's also a dark side to it. We're going to talk about that and then just overall DeFi growth and adoption. What I'm really interested by, and it seems like we have some similarities. We talked about the truckers convoy and banks shutting down, government shutting down bank accounts for donating to XYZ. Really excited to hear your backstory. I think your first video on YouTube that I could find was a video on providing liquidity way back in the day on the Avalanche blockchain, and you were doing some tutorials on, how to fund your wallet and how to provide liquidity and start creating some yield there. So you've been doing this for quite a while. What's the backstory? How did you get into this? And maybe a little tidbit of what you're working on now.
Yeah, totally. So it's funny. My first video was about 4 years ago, which to me still feels like late in the game. I had been doing crypto for a while before then, and but now suddenly blink and ha almost half a decade has gone by. But that was not my first time in crypto. I first bought into it in 2017. Like a lot of people, I was working a normal job, and someone was shilling me something. I think it was Litecoin was the first thing I bought.
All right.
And then and that was late 2017.
Let me have a peek
At
at the
the
charts for Litecoin back in 2017. How'd you do on that?
not too great, to be honest, which is a good part of the story. But like a lot of people, I actually was up. I was up on Litecoin, up on ETH, and then very quickly did exactly what you shouldn't do, which is at the peak of the bull run, I moved down the risk curve because I wasn't happy with my returns since I had gotten in late in the game, and basically lost everything that I'd put in, which wasn't very much, admittedly.
I feel like it takes
And
people a cycle. Like you need to almost go through that pain to kind of sometimes twice to like actually learn your
mhm,
lessons to be like, yo, when I'm ahead and I'll lock it in.
exactly, it's like you're not. It takes that happening to realize, okay, I wasn't a genius. I was riding a wave, and it's humiliating, but it's a necessary lesson.
Hmm.
But anyways, I was working in corporate finance at the time. My background before that was I have a degree in econ, and then I was doing finance related to supply chain forecasting for the food industry, which actually is an important part of the crypto story.
Okay.
And so I following that ended up leaving that job, but I kind of I lost interest in crypto in 2019 to my detriment, right? Because you want to stick through it during those times. But I got bored. I had other stuff going on in my life, and got back into it in 2020 because, like a lot of people, I was stuck at home. I was looking for ways to make money, and then simultaneously, I got, especially given my background in supply chain forecasting, really, you might say, obsessed with how so many things in the world were breaking down, and they were breaking down because they had centralized points of failure. And that's true for supply chain, it's true for finance, it's true for pretty much anything you can name. And it clicked for me, as I started researching how to make money in crypto, that okay, actually there's the money making side and the asymmetric returns and all that, which is what brings most people in. But the actual value is the ability to rebuild systems and especially financial systems, but ultimately everything in a way that doesn't have that centralized point of failure.
Hmm.
And so 2020, I dived much deeper into it, got into DeFi, and as anyone who knows the history of the market knows, that everything took off at the end of the year. Everything took off, and you could have been basically you had a blindfold on, throwing darts at a list of tickers,
Everyone's a genius. Yep.
and they all went up. Yeah, everyone's a genius, exactly. Um, and yeah, and since then 2020, 2021 came around, like you mentioned, uh, the actual need for some of the decentralized financial systems became more apparent with the truckers convoy in Canada, with with the Wall Street bets situation, highlighted the need for transparency. And so a lot of other people became interested in crypto and DeFi as well. But how I got into content creation, and my first video actually is that AVAX one you mentioned, was
Sweet.
I'd already been doing crypto for a while, and I was testing out DeFi in some non-Ethereum chains because the fees were outrageous back then, and I was actually trying to show my dad, who's in his mid 50s, how to do something on AVAX because he was holding AVAX in exchange, and I was like, hey, you could actually earn a lot more yield on this website called Yield Yak. And at the time, you couldn't withdraw AVAX directly to the chain that people actually use, which is called the AVAX C chain. And there was not a single guide online on how to do that.
That's
So what I did
crazy. That's
was,
just 3.5, 4 years ago. Like it's just insane how fast it moved. Like, yeah, love it.
yeah, exactly. So and there was not a single guide on how to do that. It was before AVAX had really had its first big like on-chain bull run. So I said, okay, I'll just record a quick video and put it on there. Dynamo DeFi, I used a Scrabble dictionary to find the name Dynamo because it ends with an O like crypto and begins with a D like DeFi. It really wasn't any deeper than that. Published it, and to my surprise, I checked back a few weeks later, it had a few hundred views, which is to now it's like, okay, that's not very much. But to me at the time, I had never, beyond experimenting with like some thematic Instagram and Twitter accounts, I had never really gotten into content creation. But I was like, okay, it's like people actually are interested in this. And so I started making more content. The second half of that bull run happened in November 2021, and um, account quickly blew up. So fast forward to November, December of that year, I hit 5,000 subscribers by Christmas. So from May to that Christmas, went up to 5,000, hit 10,000 on February 1st,
Let's go.
and then the market crashed, as people know. But I stuck around during the previous bear market, upped the quality of the content, launched a newsletter, got deeper into the industry, and a lot of exciting things have happened since then.
Yeah, and we'll definitely talk about some of those things. Your involvement with DeFi Llama, all that. Do you find so? This is a bit of a selfish question because I go through this. I remember starting to create content in around that same time, and I was all in on things. And then when things crashed, we actually doubled down. We built Cryptolabs Research, and I just started building a company. And I'm like, I don't care if we're losing money every month. If we build now, it's going to be it's going to take off again once the interest back in crypto and DeFi starts up again. But there was like this time probably a year and a half where just consistently creating content and the best time to get in, like literally risk reward is off the charts. The best time to actually get in, most people weren't interested in it. Again, they're bored of it or they got burned or they're just, and then once Bitcoin, I remember, started taking off, we went from 18 to, I don't know, 30,000, 40,000. I'm like, oh, all of our stats and our content are improving and people are watching again. And there's a part of me that always gets like, I wish I could reach through the computer and shake people, like, especially when everyone's in fear and everyone's running away and no one's interested in it. Probably the best time to get in. And when everyone is watching it and views are blowing up and subscribers are blowing up, maybe take some chips off the table because everyone's into this thing. Do you find that slightly frustrating? And maybe I'll follow up with you. Someone on Twitter posted something about it's time for a major change in crypto. They were talking about content creators, and you answered, the problem with mass market crypto content now is that the average person views crypto similar to gambling, drop shipping, or forex trading scams. Correct? No. Understandable? Kind of. So you're left trying to appeal to people that would otherwise be gambling or trying online money making schemes. So that's what the content appeals to, and we as creators kind of know that. And to me, the game is like get the attention of that person and then bring them into something that hopefully will change the paradigm or shift the way they see it. You said crypto does, however, have a moment coming where it can break out into the mainstream again. Again, I don't think we've seen it in mainstream for quite a while. It's been sort of quiet. And you were just talking about Europe is going to basically kind of like it's like COVID version 5.0 in my mind of like people will see the need for this stuff again. So, can you speak a little bit on the content creation side and yeah, just some of the changes, shifts, and kind of how you appeal to people, even when people's ears are a little bit deaf to the truth, so to speak.
Yeah, totally. So early on, when I was starting to professionalize my channel, I think I had about 15,000 subscribers at the time. I've got about 57,000 now. someone who was mentoring me told me, he said, if you're making high quality educational content, you actually owe it to people to get their attention because the people who are making low quality content, they're going to do that. They don't have any qualms about
Mm.
making the thumbnail and headline that's going to attract the person who is in it to make a quick buck. But if you can actually get their attention and then you actually give them high quality, informative content, you're actually doing them a service. So to me, a lot of the growth has been balancing being honest. So I'm not lying and saying, promising 100x and in a thumbnail when I can't deliver it. Um, but giving things that actually get people's attention while simultaneously then providing them what I consider to be truly educational content.
Understanding the game and playing the
Understanding the
game.
game.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, like that there's a reason people do things, and it's usually because it works, especially if you see a lot of people doing it. So that's a big part of what I've tried to do over the years, and also just carving out a niche, which for me has been largely, I know I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but for me the niche that I found was DeFi, Dynamo DeFi, but specifically looking at things that are primarily on chain and either creating peer tutorials, which is really boring, but there's actually a need for it, or incorporating tutorials with a high level overview of everything someone needs to know about a certain project. So if there's a new ecosystem, I talk about what makes it unique, the top projects on it, the fundamental stats behind it, and how to use it.
I love
And
it.
I made a lot of content like that over the course of the previous bear market. So late 2022, going into 2023. And then the beauty is a lot of that's evergreen. So as interest
Right.
returned to the space, a lot of those videos I had made a year before suddenly started picking up. For example, late 2023, I made a lot of videos about how to use Solana in the Solana ecosystem. I did that with other chains as well. But a lot of the ones I made with Solana, who would have thought the whole ecosystem took off, right? Still get hundreds of views per day. A year and a half later, they still get hundreds of views per day simply because now if you search how to set up a Phantom wallet, my video is probably the number one. And I'm ranked number one across a lot of keywords for things like that. So that's a big part of the strategy with how I was able to grow the channel as far as the content creation game, as you know, as someone who's done that successfully yourself, a lot of it's about the funnel. So I funnel people from YouTube to a free newsletter, which has about 23,000 subscribers, and then from there you can funnel people to various other things. But as far as that tweet and the original premise I think was Andy saying Andy's he's another content creator saying that content creators should do better. The problem is and Andy is a great guy and I understand what he's saying with this. The problem is just because you make content doesn't mean anyone's going to watch it,
Right.
right? You have to actually make something that people want. And part of the problem is there's not a crypto isn't an underserved niche as far as content. There's actually probably more content than people can consume at the moment because interest has
Yep.
died down. And and that's much like you mentioned, that's the people's loss because prices are down, which is actually the best time to be buying. But there's always people in crypto like, oh, content creators should educate people about uh, all the great things you can do with it, and that's okay. But if you actually try to make those things you can do
No
with
one
it,
cares.
no one cares. No one cares. Exactly. No one cares. I've tried it. You've probably tried it. Lots of people have tried it. No one cares. And so instead, a lot of it is actually about saying, okay, like here is what people really want to know is they want to know how to invest in the assets, digital assets, and they want to wrap their head around this new asset class and wrap their head around the different strategies for earning yield and making money with it. So what you can do is you can say, here are the tools you need to do that. And part of doing due diligence on anything like that is understanding where the fundamental value comes from. And that includes the fundamental value of the blockchain itself, as well as the value of any applications that are built on it. And it's impossible to understand that without actually understanding the real usage behind it.
I love it. I mean, I see it like giving out cookies in front of a church, and it's like, hey, come on in, and then we'll give you the stuff you need type of idea, like converting people into a follower of whatever religion. So you sound like you create content, try to get as much appeal while staying authentic and like as real as you can, get people on a newsletter, and now you can probably hit them with the more boring stuff, but because they're bought into you and your brand, and they're looking forward to those emails, you can actually start educating on a deeper level and have their interest long enough to actually give them something meaningful. So we see it the same way. Like put people into a from degen, like from a gambler to an investor program for free, and like get them seeing it differently. But how do you get their attention? How do you funnel them in? So I love that. What you mentioned something about the on chain. You did a lot of tutorials, and I saw some on your YouTube channel as I was devouring things getting ready for today's call. You did a lot of stuff on DeFi Llama, and like, hey, here's how you actually properly use DeFi Llama, and then you were showing some on-chain data and how to collect that and how to actually look at it for someone who's a little newer to this space and is looking to um, get a little educated on how to actually assess these assets or assess these opportunities or even look at opportunities on different chains and protocols. They can just check out your YouTube channel, so I'm sure they'll get a ton. But if you had to give them a little snippet, someone's newer to the space and they want some wisdom from someone who is involved with DeFi Llama, which we'll talk about next. What would be some tools and what would be some advice for those guys and gals?
Absolutely. And so, yeah, if you say we'll get into DeFi Llama
And
specifically
we can
next,
put
I
it all
won't go
together here.
into,
Yeah.
we can put it all together. Okay, so first I'll say, in addition to doing my own stuff as of a couple months ago, I also run marketing and business development for DeFi Llama, which is one of the largest platforms that aggregates data related to these on-chain applications. And so part of the niche that I found for myself in content, even before I got involved with them a couple months ago, this goes back years, was actually trying to talk about the fundamentals behind some of these digital assets. And like you mentioned, if people are new to the space, it can be kind of confusing because truthfully, most cryptos don't really have fundamentals.
And
But there are,
99% of
but
it doesn't.
90% exactly. But the problem is some people think, okay, that means none of it does. And there are some that really does have fundamentals. So for example, you can look at the revenue, revenue of various crypto related applications. And there are some that are actually generating tens or hundreds of millions of dollars a year
Mhm.
in revenue, serious numbers. And those include stable coins, those include decentralized exchanges, those include lending protocols. There's there's
It's
there's a
it's
whole,
it's
whole variety.
wild, like the
It
revenue
is
too,
wild,
because
right?
like I look at revenue per, let's say you're building a business, you at some point probably look at revenue per employee and you try to ensure, it's a stat or metric that you can, no one talks about this because it doesn't sound very sexy. It sounds pretty corporate, but it's something you look at. And when you look at like revenue per employee of these DeFi applications, like if you think about it that way, I'm just like, oh my God, it's like some of those profitable stuff on the planet. It's really cool to see.
Exactly. I mean, even something like Tether, which is maybe not DeFi, but is DeFi adjacent because it's a stable coin, probably has some of the highest profit per employee of
Crazy.
any company in the world. That's not a like a holding company. Um, yeah, I mean, I forget the stats, but they produce something like hundreds of millions of dollars of profit a year
Yeah.
with less than 50 employees. It's mind-boggling. But yeah, so a lot of the tools that people can use would be DeFi Llama would be one, where you can track, for example, the revenue of different applications for DeFi applications that have deposits, often called total value locked. You can track the deposits in it, which can be another way to measure growth, like it is with other sorts of financial companies.
Hmm.
Um, another important skill I think that people would benefit from is understanding how to use a portfolio tracker if they're actually doing anything in their wallet themselves, not just to track their own portfolio, but to track other wallets, because it can kind of seem like magic if you hear like this big wallet is selling, but if you understand how to use DBank or Arkham, which are two of the bigger ones that come to mind, you can actually learn how to track things yourself. Probably the other thing, which I actually should have said this first, most important thing if you're trying to avoid losing money, which would be the probably
Important.
the most important thing if you're new to crypto is how to not get completely rinsed, is understand token unlocks. And DeFi Llama tracks those. There's another website, Tokenimist, that tracks some as well. And we've been improving our coverage, but you can check both. And
For someone
if you
watching,
see,
why is that important? The token
yes,
unlocks.
yes. So if you go to a website like CoinGecko or your website that tracks crypto prices and market caps of your choosing, you'll see some projects on there. They'll have their market cap and then they'll have what's called the fully diluted valuation. The fully diluted valuation is what the market cap would be if all of the tokens were in circulation, because you have team members who have tokens that haven't vested yet. You have early investors, people invested in the seed round who may not have their tokens vested yet. You have emissions to incentivize people to use the protocol. And as time goes on, some of those tokens are going to unlock. And one of the great things about crypto is it makes investments liquid early through tokens. One of the bad things about crypto is it makes is exactly the same. It makes investments liquid early. So you have protocols that launch and then maybe starting a year later, tokens start unlocking. Occasionally they start unlocking right away. And so you might be buying it because you saw a video on YouTube that told you how great this token was. Meanwhile, people who invested at 10% of the price you did because they invested in the seed round, every single week they're getting unlocks and they're selling. So they're trying to hype up the token.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, they get unlocks and they're selling and they don't even care if the price dips because they're already up 10x. It could go down and still be up 9x. Um, and you can avoid those sorts of situations if you understand unlocks and understand the dollar value of how many tokens are coming onto the market. And I know I'm rambling a little here,
That's great.
but say you had a token that had $100 million unlocking a week. And there are tokens like that on the market right now I can think of that have $100 million worth of tokens unlocking a week. Not all those are going to be sold. Say half of those are sold on the market because whoever is unlocking is,
Make
they
some money.
could have gotten it for free, right? They
Yeah.
could have been
Well, that's how they got
received it as
paid early
compensation.
on.
Yeah, exactly. It could have been how they were compensated. So say $50 million of sell pressure. That means you need $50 million of buy pressure just to keep the token price the same. And if you're constructing an investment thesis surrounding this, you have to ask yourself, okay, is there in this market enough buy pressure to actually offset that and make price go up? And
Mhm.
sometimes these tokens might have unlocks
Mhm.
going out years. So it's maybe one of the most important, in my opinion, parts of due diligence to do when researching a token or a digital asset because it eliminates so many things as viable investments right off the bat.
I really hope people hear that. I sometimes get frustrated because I'll ask someone why they bought something, and it's like, well, this person I trust said it, and they're probably well meaning, but it's like they've never even dove into even basics fundamental. Like they don't really understand what they bought. And I'm like, well, if you had 200 grand sitting in your bank account, you wouldn't just go on whatever real estate uh, apartments for sale in my city and buy two apartments willy nilly for rentals. You'd investigate the area, the rents, the strata fees, the balance sheet of that apartment building. Like, is it in good shape? What can you get? Blah blah blah. You do some due diligence. It would probably take you a week or two before you even thought about signing anything or even going to look at it. Right. So it blows my mind how it is like I was in Vegas a few months ago for something, and I don't gamble, and like I think I took $100 and that was all I was willing to like play some slots just for fun, whatever, walk through it. But I just saw like hundreds of people sitting there pulling the levers, and it didn't seem like they were having fun. Like they were sitting there droned out, drinking, smoking, doing their thing, almost like. And I just kind of, I kind of got sad for Vegas for a moment, but then I thought about how that's happening in crypto, except that's in someone's basement on their computer, and they're kind of doing the same thing, clicking the keys, hoping to get rich, hoping to win. And I'm like, and that's happening, a million times over in basements, and we don't actually see it. But if you put a video camera on everyone, it would look like Vegas a lot. People just sitting there hoping to get the whatever freaking, I don't even know how you win a slot machine. But so yeah, even just some basic due diligence so you know where your money's going. Like I understand the importance of a dollar because I came from nothing. So I mean, like $1 is worth a lot to me even to this day. I'm like, I'm not willing to put it in something where I lose it. I want to I want to grow each dollar. Um, let's talk about DeFi Llama, your involvement with it. Sounds like a few months ago you came on the marketing team. That must give you a lot of insight into what the markets actually want, which probably even as an investor actually probably helps you a bit because you can understand what the markets are doing and thinking. Maybe I'm stretching, but I would think it would. Even being on our end for even YouTube analytics, sometimes it helps me even gauge where the market's at and how much interest is in cryptos. So you must have a ton of data to help you as an investor. What's going on DeFi Llama? What are you working on? What are you guys working on? And whatever you can reveal and talk about.
Yeah, totally. First, I just wanted to comment real quick on what you were saying about every dollar mattering. One of the most helpful concepts I've learned that's helped me in my crypto journey is recognizing the house money effect. And when I see it in
Mm,
myself, because when the bull run kicks off, if you're holding almost anything, suddenly you have a lot more capital than you invested in, and it's easy for it to feel like the money doesn't
free.
matter because it feels free. It feels free, right? If your money, I mean, in some cases, dectupled in a month, then it feels free.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's real money, and so recognizing when that's happening, and just for me at least, what helps is pulling out a little bit, so so it feels real, and I remember, okay, I can actually buy things, buy things with this money.
It's the
It's
best
not
feeling, man.
free.
Like I'm in Canada, so we use Newton, but they have an over the counter. Or I've got I got someone I can call, and they will convert whatever I want and put it right in my bank account, usually within a few hours. And like, it is the best feeling to me when I call them. I say, hey, I'm zapping some USDC into the wallet, and 4 hours later, there's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand in my bank account. And it's like, as much as I hate fiat, there's a bit of a need for it, and I've got to pay for my wife and kids in some way, shape, or form. And
Mhm.
like most places still don't take Bitcoin. So like I need the dollar. Best feeling in the world to me. But yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anyways, I know you had asked about DeFi Llama. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
what's
I
going on
actually
there?
yeah. So I am the marketing department. I'm the
Oh,
only
you're okay.
I'm the only non-developer on the team. I had been talking about it for years. I had been just talking about the platform a lot, posting insights on Twitter, making YouTube videos, and so I got to know the founder and team over the course of years. And then in December, one of the founders, the founder I know, reached out to me and said, "Hey, we're looking to bring on someone to run marketing and stuff. Would you ever consider?" I said, I kind of prefer working for myself, but I really like the platform and think it could be a good complement to the other things I'm doing because I'm still allowed to have full control over my own business as well. So I started doing that, and yeah, so like I mentioned before, for people who aren't familiar with DeFi Llama, we track total value locked, revenue, fees, treasuries, unlocks, as well as dozens of other metrics across
No, dude. And if
thousands
you
of
guys haven't got on
applications.
it, I mean, spend an hour on DeFi Llama. Even go through the categories if you're newer to DeFi and have a look at what categories are available to you and like how much revenue some of these categories bring in. And then you can actually double click down and check out the top 10 and actually go on the DApp. Check it out. Like
Mhm.
I think
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
the best platform that aggregates all of the data in my mind across DeFi. Like there's no platform that comes close.
Yeah. It's no, it's really cool. And for people who don't know how it works, we pull all the data directly from the blockchain. So it's not like, oh, this is what they're reporting in their quarterly financials. It all updates daily automatically from the wallets and smart contracts that we track on chain. We also track close to 20,000 yield pools on there. Uh, but to that point, so why does it matter? First, fundamentals, like you mentioned, but it's actually I hate to say new paradigm, but it actually is an interesting new way to look at financials for businesses in general because rather than there being quarterly reports, it's actually all transparent. In some cases, hourly. In other cases, daily, where it updates. So if you have an investment, you can, I might not recommend doing this because you'll psych yourself out, but you can actually track their revenue daily, right? You
Right.
could
Pretty
you could
cool.
see how their market cap to revenue ratio moves daily. Unfortunately, it's tougher to track earnings most of the times because expenses, like you mentioned, the real world often
Right.
often have to come out of a bank account. But yeah, it's actually a much more radically transparent way to track financials than investors are used to. And for people who, even though you don't think of crypto and value investing or fundamental investing as going together, for people who are into that, actually,
Yeah.
I think that they can have a enjoyable time doing it because they get such transparency into the metrics of these different applications. And as far as my involvement there, it's mostly been to build out marketing and sales, especially related to some of their new launches. So just this past week, we launched the first premium product we had, which is called Llama Plus. That will soon include other features as well that are not announced yet. But at the moment, it includes a customized front page dashboard for a variety of different feeds we track. So prediction markets, prices. aggregated news, tweets, uh, exchange flows, token unlocks, potential airdrops, all those sorts of things tracked in one customizable dashboard, and also includes CSV downloads of all of our data. So that was the first paid product we launched after years of, except excluding our API, which has had a pro version for a while. But our first consumer paid product that we launched after having years of having the free data, the data we provided is all still free.
Hmm.
And and yeah, so I've been working on some things related to marketing that as well. As far as what it's taught me about the industry, I would say one of the biggest things is through my own channel and newsletter and everything. I already talk to a lot of DeFi founders, but this gives me
Mm.
exposure to a whole new class of founder and builder and all that. Uh, if you just looked at retail sentiment, you looked at the Twitter feed or you looked at the comments on videos right now, you would think that the industry was dead. But then you talk to people who are actually working in it, and for a lot of them, they may have been building something for multiple years. It's not even a question, right? They're still building the same thing they were building months
Hmm.
ago. And and
Hmm.
and that's for people who are actually in the industry trying to make useful products. The market cycles do matter because that affects how much money is coming in and how much interest is coming in. But at the end of the day, like products got to get built, whether the
Hmm.
whether the cycle is up or down.
So good. I'm so excited to see where to. Every time I'm like, because I do get bought into the fear and the greed, and I just kind of see like, oh, no one's interested, and I may even start getting down on myself about it. I'm like, hold up, like, where are we going to be in 10 years? Because there are real people building stuff every single day, whether Bitcoin and crypto is up at $2.5 trillion market cap or 1 trillion. It could go down to 200,000. Like, it doesn't matter. People are still building, and to me, it really excites me. Um, to see like the practical applications, because me as an investor, I'd consider myself a value investor before I got into crypto. And remember when I got into crypto and I was like, there's no, how do you value this? Like, people just make up the value in so many of these assets. And once I started looking at revenue generating projects and actually started seeing a business in it, I was like, oh, I want to get into that. I don't want to just buy a token because a team is working on a cool project and it's getting hyped up. Like, I didn't understand crypto for actually a really long time because I didn't understand the actual value. And then again, DeFi Llama, you start going on revenue generated, and you actually start seeing there's like a real use case. It's solving a problem, and that I could invest in if it's solving a problem that I see being around in a few years.
100%, 100%.
Dude, so good. Where do you see? So you're I get two more quick questions. Where do you see DeFi going in, let's say, I mean, 12 and 24 months sounds like a lot of time. In a way, it's not. But where do you kind of see the space going, especially maybe being involved with DeFi Llama? Maybe you see some cool stuff coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, totally. So I don't actually have access to a ton of data that's not public because, for example, all of our dashboards there they update in real time. But I think the next 12 to 24 months, the number one biggest trend in DeFi is going to be a lot more assets with real world value coming on chain. And to date, that's mostly taken the form of stablecoins, which people say, oh, stablecoins aren't that exciting. It's just tokenized fiat. But you zoom out and you go back to the start of 2024, the total, I don't have the dashboard in front of me right now, but the total value of all stablecoins on chain is up, I believe, over $100 billion since then.
Mm-hmm.
And that's real money. That's either backed by dollars or US treasuries or occasionally other currencies like euros that's actually somewhere in a bank account.
We're
So
not
you've
talking
got
about USDT or Terra Luna here. We're talking real, no
real,
doggo peg, real stuff backed by real
exactly
assets.
real fiat backed
Yep.
stable coins. The US Treasury Department just did a report on it a few days ago. And then you also got the growth of real world assets, which are still relatively small but growing quickly. They've grown from a few $100 million 3 years ago to now over $10 billion and growing rapidly. And for people who aren't familiar, it's kind of a cringy term, like real world assets, as if, what is the real world? But the internet's a part of the real world too. But basically non-crypto assets that are being tokenized. So I like to say tokenized assets, and that's either tokenized treasury bills, that's tokenized equities, that's tokenized real estate, tokenized gold is a huge one
Mm-hmm.
right now. And they're tradable on chain. So then anything that you do in DeFi, whether it's lending, whether it's using as collateral to take out an instant loan, whether it's providing liquidity, you can then do with these other assets. So there are people who are now earning yield on gold through this
Mhm.
tokenized gold. So the first trend, I think, over the next 24 months, 12 to 24 months, is now that we're getting regulatory clarity in the US and a lot of major institutions have made it clear that they intend to tokenize a lot of these things. You're going to see the value of those assets on chain grow exponentially. You're already seeing it happen. I think stablecoins is going to easily surpass $500 billion as an asset class, probably approach $1 trillion within a couple of years, and then go far beyond that. Real world assets, depending on how quickly these programs get online, can very quickly grow because $10 billion is nothing compared to the total value of all financial assets in the world. You've had Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, say that he thinks that most or all equities and bonds will be tokenized eventually. Um, so
Which
you're going to
makes
see a lot
sense
of
to
those.
me. Like that just it just makes sense that that's
It
where the
makes
space would
sense.
go.
And once you get enough momentum in that direction, I think it's going to be one of those things where it happens slowly, but then it'll happen all at
Mhm.
once, where you'll get enough momentum where you'll suddenly have
Everyone's doing it.
everyone's doing it and overnight switch flips.
Hmm.
And then the next phase after that is once the assets are on chain, is that opens up both new use cases for existing DeFi applications because suddenly rather than playing with like meme coin that has no intrinsic value, instead you're actually using these primitives that have already been tested
Got it.
essentially with gambling to actually uh, either borrow against or provide liquidity for real assets. So suddenly the existing DeFi applications have a whole new slew of assets that they can be used with. And then also a it opens up the path for people to actually build um, all types of applications that use those fundamentals as or use those assets as a building block. And one example of that would be something like Polymarket, which is the leading prediction market for betting on elections and things like that. It was referenced widely with the most recent US election. It's actually built on crypto, and I think a lot of the news programs that reference it may not
Mm.
even know that it's built with crypto, but that's only possible because you first had people bring stablecoins on chain. So then
Right.
imagine as you get more access to stablecoins on and off ramps and you get more equities and bonds and other assets on chain, the like huge array of different applications that people will be able to build.
That as an investor who who takes investing fairly seriously. I ain't no Warren Buffett, but I've been studying this stuff for a decade because I when I was at 23 working on the oil rigs, I literally was just busting my ass, didn't have much money. I just started asking successful people of like, what do you do? They were either entrepreneurs, investors, or both. And I was like, well, I better just learn that game and I better learn it really, really well because no one else has told me they got rich working on the oil rigs unless they did it for 40 years. But even then, they were investing. So I just like when I put a dollar somewhere, I understand how that dollar is being recycled and like where it's actually going and how value is created. So I do want to see more of that. I also think that'll bring in more sophisticated investors who aren't out overnight because some tweet came out. Like they're actually investing. They're not gambling. I do, and that was my final question for you is when you think about the space, you know, I think as content creators we do see a lot of gambling going on. Like how does that shift? How do you think through that into like because that does hold the space back, I think. Because sophisticated investors come in or people who are actually taking this seriously and their first exposure is it's all gambly, all these people are gambling, and it kind of um they they're like, why would I, this makes no sense. Why are people, this doesn't make sense. Um when does that shift? How does that shift look like? Does that shift happen? Like how does this space get, does education play a huge role in it? Um, like how does that happen?
Totally. So I'll break it down into two parts. First, I'll address the second half of your question, which is what role does education play, and then talk about the shift. So there's things that people like you and I can do, right? I mean, as you mentioned before, you said gambler to investor. One thing I like to say is gambler to investor to user, right? To someone who's actually using the technology. And so education can play a role in helping people who are ready to make that step. And there may be people you can help pull along the way. But ultimately, if someone wants to gamble and then they see crypto is not for the best place to gamble, there's plenty of other places they can gamble, right? And that brings to the second point, which is, okay, when is that shift going to happen and why? I think that shift's already happening. And I think part of it actually is related to the same reason why a lot of altcoins underperformed over the past 6 months compared to what people were expecting. And the reason is that there's actually a lot of other places people can gamble now compared to 4 years ago. Sports betting,
Hmm,
online sports
sure.
betting is much more widespread at this point. So you have certain classes of people who maybe would have gambled on crypto in the past who instead are placing parlays or all sorts of things like that. And don't get me wrong, there's still plenty of gambling people who are using crypto to gamble, but there's actually other places they can get that fixed now as well. And then simultaneously, you've had the asset class become more legitimized because of the ETF launch, because of the fact that these major institutions are signaling that they're embracing it for tokenization. And then now you're getting regulatory clarity in the US. So even though you still have that side that's related to gambling,
Got it. Makes
the
less of a
side that's
dent.
it makes less of a dent, and the side that's more focused on the actual technology and adoption of it is occupies a larger space than it did, for example, compared to, for example, 4 years ago. And and I think it's gotten big enough at this point that you can actually people can start to build viable businesses that are not being forced to cater to the gambling side of things.
I love it. If people want to, and I highly recommend anyone listening or watching to dive into Twitter. I spent probably half hour going through your Twitter feed and just having a peek at your mind. I love diving into like how someone's mind works, and you get to know someone. I think when the ones actually creating content and just how they speak and think through things, which is why I always love asking the question, how do you think through or how do you think about something? Because it gives me an insight into how they see the world, which fascinates me. So check out Dynamo DeFi's Twitter and YouTube. But if people want to find you, where's the best place to connect? Where's the best place to learn more from you?
Totally. So YouTube is Dynamo DeFi, youtube.com/Dynamo DeFi. And then my Twitter or X as
X.
it's
I gotta
called
get
now
used to. I'm
is
still not used to it.
I'm still not used to it and it's been years, but my X is Pat F. Scott.
Pat F. Scott. We will have the links below. Uh, Patrick, thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Lucas.
So that wraps up today's conversation. If you have any questions for today's guest on any topic we discussed, or maybe topics we didn't discuss, do leave them in the comments below. If you have a recommendation, or if you'd love to see someone on this show, from a guest, from an expert, from an investor, from maybe someone who's built or is involved in a protocol, do let us know in the comments below. And again, if you enjoyed, like this video, subscribe to this channel, and we'll see you in the next.